Can you run 2 kilometers in 8 minutes and 35 seconds? If you can, according to some people, you are eligible to play for Sri Lanka cricket. But I don't think so. There's been so much said about this new fitness test that Sri Lanka cricket has conducted recently for all its players. So much has been said in terms of why it was done, what should it have been, and why the results were taken out, and why was it made public, and so many opinions have been made. And I, for one, I don't like to comment on things that I'm not very knowledgeable about. Fitness is not something that I don't think I should be speaking, but what I'm good at is asking the right questions from the right people, and that is, for today, Shanaka Amarasinghe, who knows a bit about cricket and athleticism and fitness and these things. Welcome to Cricketology, Shanaka.
Thanks very much, Samir. Thanks for having me.
Right, let's get straight into this. These numbers that we always read about, 2 kilometers in 8 minutes and 35 seconds. Is there some sort of technicality behind this, like these specific numbers? There's a new physio that has come from Pakistan who's, giving these numbers to the players. What's the science behind it? Would you know anything about it?
Just a quick correction there, Samir. It's not a physio, it's actually a strength and conditioning coach that has come in. So I think there's a bit of a, people think that there's an overlap between the two, but there really isn't. A strength and conditioning coach and the physio work together, but it's not the same job. But this coach has come in, and I think this is a test that has been done in India. It's probably been done in Pakistan. It's been done in other cricketing countries in the world. It's a 2 kilometer test, which you have to run in less than a particular time. So the time that was given, I think, was widely publicized, was 8 minutes 35 seconds. So that makes it about 1 minute and 40 seconds ish for a 400 meter round of the Sukadasa Stadium track, which should be achievable, I would think, for most international level sportsmen, given that the world record in the 400 meters is something like 40 seconds. You're getting a minute extra to try and run that. So that's one thing that they're hoping to achieve, is to show that the players have an aerobic standard. So what we call fitness, Samir, is what we also refer to as aerobic fitness in what people would in the industry refer to as aerobic fitness. So there's aerobic sports and anaerobic sports. Aerobic sports where you require a lot of fitness, you need quick turnaround time, you can't afford to get tired, and anaerobic sports which also have long breaks between your bouts of effort.
Okay. And cricket is something that has that.
Exactly.
Yes.
Cricket is an anaerobic sport. So whether you should be testing for aerobic fitness in an anaerobic sport is a debate that's going on. I don't think there's really an answer to that. Of course, every sport needs a level of aerobic fitness. Whether the 2 kilometer test is the right one to do or not, I think the jury will be out on that. I don't think there's any agreement even in the industry as to whether this is the right test, but that's what they're hoping to do. They're hoping to test whether the players are fit enough, the aerobic fitness is good enough for them to compete at the highest level.
But the good news is at least that almost all players that we know have passed this test. But this whole issue and discussion of fitness came up, Shanaka, recently in South Africa. We saw most of our fast bowlers going down very easily, lots of injuries one after the other. That's when this whole discussion started coming up. But then, correct me if I'm wrong though, most of those issues were issues of conditioning and strengthening, not so much of endurance, whereas this test is more about endurance, about how long you can last. How do you then judge, whether this player, just because he's finished his endurance tests within this particular time, he's still good enough, he still has the strength and the conditioning to be able to playing at the highest level?
Well, I would like to think that this is not the only test that they're going to put on people. And if it is the only test, then we are in a little bit of trouble. Because it doesn't mean that a guy who's light, a guy who's young, can probably do this fitness test without a problem. It doesn't mean that he's going to be able to perform at the highest level. It doesn't mean he's going to be able to clear the boundary. It doesn't mean that he's going to be able to bowl high speed all the time. So if you look at, say, a fast bowler, Samir, if you look at a fast bowler who runs, say, a 30-meter run-up is quite a long run-up, let's say 25 meters, and he's running that for 6 balls. So each 25-meter run, he gets a run and then he gets a rest. He walks back to his mark, and it's about 30 to 45 seconds, and he just does another one. And it's not an all-out sprint. I mean, I don't play cricket, but I'm assuming that fast bowlers run in at about maybe 70% of their match.
Possibly.
But the issue really, the injuries start happening in that delivery stride. When you take that jump, when you take that landing, that's when your muscles need to be strong to support your hip joints, support your knees, support your ankles. And when the muscles are not strong, that's when the issues happen. So the issue is not so much how much he can do that run, how well he can do that run. It's about whether he can perform what he needs to do at the end of that run. And just running 2 kilometers and doing that test better and better and better won't mean that he's able to do the job at the end of that run up if he's not doing other stuff like strength training.
So there you go. Shanaka echoes what I really thought is the fact that, this is not the only thing that needs to be looked at. There needs to be more testing that needs to be done, especially when it comes to strength and conditioning issues. Okay, here's another argument that I've read online, and I think it makes a lot of sense. You take guys like Arjuna back in the day, you take guys like Aravinda, Rangan Herath more recently, not the most fittest blokes, obviously. If you do an endurance test on them, I'm sure, no disrespect to them, I'm sure they will find it hard to achieve that. But having said that, they were match winners for us. Is it fair then to say that, okay, you know what, it doesn't matter whether you've got skill or not, you have to pass this test? How do you balance this whole idea between skills versus athleticism for a cricketer?
It's a very difficult one, Samir, which is why I think I wrote an article back in 2011 about the importance of strength in cricket. And that has come to pass in the last 10 years. It's been 10 years since I wrote that, and now people are actually starting to talk about this, because you see in the IPL, you see strong cricketers, you see guys who can clear the boundary, you can see guys who can bowl fast and also bowl slow coming in at that stream run up. So you've got shoulders, you've got hips, you've got knees, you've got ankles, all which need to be really strong. So I doubt whether guys like Arjuna will cut it in the modern game. To be fair to them, they were successful when they needed to be at the game at that time, and I'm sure if they needed to be successful now, they would work harder.
True. And also the cricketers' workload in the modern game is much more, right? Like I remember back in the day, we would have to wait months and months till we saw our cricketers on TV, because the tours weren't that many. But now a lot of more cricket is being played around the world. So that means you need cricketers to be up to that mark.
Yeah. So that's one of the complaints actually of the strength and conditioning coaches. They're like, we don't know how to get this guy fit because he's always playing cricket. And the thing about a cricket match is it takes the whole day or it takes 5 days. So do you have time within that period to actually work on the players? When your team is batting, should the tail end players be going off and doing some fitness? These are things that are only now being asked as questions. So I think we may have seen when the team is playing a one-day international, during the lunch break, you will have some of the players coming out and doing those shuttle runs. I'm sure you'd have noticed that. So these are things that have started coming into cricket of late. I'm sorry to say other sports are well ahead of cricket in terms of strength and conditioning, but guys like Aravinda and Arjuna may not have survived in the current environment. But the other example you posed, Rangan Herath, is a really interesting one, because there you begin to wonder if Rangan Herath can't do a 2 kilometers in under 10 minutes. Perhaps he can, perhaps he can't. But assuming he can't, do you leave him out of the team? The greatest left-arm spinner in the history of the world, do you leave him out? The answer is obviously no. So that's where you really need to have a balance.
Priorities, skills versus athleticism. I don't think this question has a direct answer, as Shanaka says. Okay, here's the last question, and I don't think this has got to do too much with the fitness itself, but there were questions asked about why SLC decided to publicize the results of the players that took part in the test. Do you think it was good to do, or it shouldn't have been done, should have been done behind closed doors? But there's something else at play here, the whole idea behind it?
Well, there's a bit of a debate, isn't there, Samir, as to whether it should have been public or not. But for me, the fact remains that elite professional sportsmen make their money off people being invested and engaged in the sport. If people weren't watching on TV, there would be no advertising revenue, and if people weren't putting their bums on seats, there would be no ticket revenue either. So public engagement is something that has now become, with social media, it's become a norm. So I don't see a huge problem with the fitness test being publicized. I really don't, because the public maybe not have a right, but it would be nice for them to know who are the fittest cricketers that we have going around our team at the moment, especially because it's become an issue. So I don't see too much of a problem with it. But what I would like to see also as a result of that is that the players are pushing themselves a little harder. The players who failed came back the next week and they were like, hey, look at us now. And it was all over their social media saying, well, we passed the test. So there's a little bit of pressure being built. And if that pressure can result in the players performing better, then I think it might have been a master stroke. You never know.
There you go. So I guess that must have been one of the thinkings behind the administrators of publicizing the results. But just like Shanaka said, just to quickly cap up what he said, I think this alone shouldn't, be the benchmark of testing whether a cricketer is fit enough to play in the national side or not. There's much more to it. Skills are as important as your fitness, but combining those two is the biggest challenge that the administrators have in selecting the right team. Shanaka, thanks a lot, man. Lovely chat.
Always. Thank you very much.
All right, so there you go. That's Cricketology on the whole fitness saga. I'll see you next time with something interesting just like this. Bye-bye.